Welcome to 10 Steps Not to Forget After Installing Drupal 8. A few years back, I did a Drupal 7 version of this. Well, hopefully, you'll get some useful information out of it. Some things might be obvious, and hopefully we'll come across some settings that you don't know about. But the goal of this is to, after you've installed Drupal 8, is to get it in a state where you can really start building on it. There are certain things, if you do them earlier in the process, it's going to save you a lot of time as you go through and configure and build out your site. So first, a little survey of the people in the audience here. How many people consider themselves site builders? And how many people have been doing Drupal more than 2 years or a year? Yeah, that's good. So you're pretty experienced. How many people have built a Drupal 8 site? Quite a few. That's good. All right, so just first a little bit about myself. My background, I was educated as a painter. I thought I've been going through and digitizing all my slides from my long painterly career. I thought it'd be fun to throw one up here. So I even founded a nonprofit up in Baltimore in the early 90s that's booming now and probably has 20, 30 employees and going strong in our neighborhood in Highlandtown. One accomplishment as an artist, I bound a book for Pope John Paul II, and I'm also an organist and a musician, so quite a diverse set of skills, but I needed some practical way to support all those activities, and that's what led me to programming and finally to Drupal. I did my first web project in '95, the first State Arts Council slide registry. I had my Drupal epiphany at Drupal Con DC back in 2009 or 10. And currently I'm a partner at Snake Hill Web Agency up in Baltimore. And there's the Pope with the book I made. All right, here we go. All right. So our first step here is to make things easier. So sooner or later, you're going to have some things you might want to do is, number one, take care of your dev environment. So that includes touching possibly php.ini file to increase the memory settings there, increase the file upload size settings, things like that. Make sure you have Drush installed. If you're not great at command line, start to ramp up on that stuff, because you're going to need Drush, you're going to need Git, and if you're theming, start acquainting yourself with compiled CSS like Gulp, Sass, and less. I apologize, we lost some fidelity in the slide somehow, but we'll hammer away. So there's certain modules you want to install right off the bat that are going to help you save time as you develop your site. One of the first things is Drupal 8. I'm going to pull up what it looks like, vanilla, brand new Drupal 8 here. So, we've got an admin menu. It's pretty decent, but you're going to have to drill into everything here and click, 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 and to get to things. If you install admin toolbar right off the bat, you're going to get a much better interface, I think, with drop downs, so you don't have to hunt through all those menus. So you want to do that probably first. And then develop module, having that in there. There's certain helper modules, Path Auto, pretty much every site's going to have it. Because it's going to automatically create your URLs for you. reroute email. We do a lot of sites that have notifications, a lot of rules-based notifications, sending things out. And the worst thing that can happen is someone's developing the site and testing things, and emails start going out to clients, or to users registered in the system. So this handy-dandy reroute email module helps redirect those to one email address so you can do some testing. One caveat with it, or one flaw in it, is that if you have HTML email, it doesn't get to you as HTML. It comes in as text, which is a bummer. So it'd be nice, maybe somebody will patch that soon and you can get your HTML mail so you can tell whether the formatting is correct. And typically, these days, although you can send your email out on the hosted server, you probably want to hook up to a SMTP service like Maelstrom, the MailChimp service. It's free. You can route all your email out from it. It's going to prevent your server from being flagged as a source of spam. And I think I like having display suite. I think especially Drupal 8 seems to be merging into a lot of the things that display suite has done in the past. It's doing now out of the box, but that extends a lot of that to create different displays for different content types. So, I mean, there's some basic settings, and the reason why I like to go over these is you go through your installation process, you've entered your database and your password for the database, all those sort of things, and you've entered the site title of the site and some other information. And we tend to forget about some of these basic settings, so you really need to go in sooner rather than later, and definitely before you launch, just to make sure everything's going well there. So the site email would really be the person responsible for maintaining the site would be there. Sometimes you might be tempted to put the client email there so they can get notifications out of the system, some of the defaults for rules and some of the other things sending out notifications. But you wouldn't necessarily want them to get update notifications. The front page settings, it defaults to Node, which is the list of content and a list of by posted date. Typically, that would be some other page or some landing page that you develop. A little trivia: who knows what is Node 1 on Drupal.org? A little trivia. No one? Come on, venture a guess. What? User? No. It's about. Yeah, somebody got it. Good. That was a Drupal trivia question a few conferences back. So I think these, the 403 errors, access denied, 44 page not found, I think you do want to address these. Showing end users errors is not a great thing. If they're getting access denied, it sort of makes sense if it's a site where they're supposed to log in, send them to the login page, and throw up the message there. You can do some fun things with 4443 pages. Obviously, it'd be best to clean out or make sure that you're not getting those. For a page not found, there is a handy-dandy module called redirect that sometimes when you change a page changes its URL, or maybe you've done a migration from an older site that doesn't have the clean URLs or has a different way of organizing the URLs. The redirect module, you can go in and specify the old URL and have it redirect to the new clean URLs generated by Path Auto and Drupal. So, did I go backwards? users. So, account settings by default, they're open. Someone would be able to register on your site. They might need approval, but they would be able to create an account. So if it's a site that people aren't going to be registering, definitely shut that down by making it so that only administrators can create users. If it is going to be open, then you're going to have to take precautions for bogus spam accounts being created. I find especially when you switch over a domain, the spam, it's like they know. And the spam spikes after you switch over a domain. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. You want to lay out your user roles during your discovery period and define those ahead of time. Switching those later can be problematic. There's a lot of, in Drupal 8, everything's a entity and therefore fieldable, and many more things are fields. So the old picture field that's in the user account is now a field, and you can go in there and add fields. But we still have things like the Profile 2 module out there, or to have role-based profiles that are separate from the account page. So you can use that. Some other helpful modules, where did I go? Yep. Some other helpful modules here are conditional fields module. So you can set it up so that based on input and other fields, you can hide and display other fields on the account form or the profile form or any form on the website. In the past, we've had for managing logging in and logging out, we've had, you like to take people where they need to be, right? So after they log in, typically the default in Drupal is they go to their profile page. And more often than not, that doesn't make too much sense. So send them where they need to be. For this, you can use rules and Rules UI, and thankfully since spring or wherever, it seems that Rules is now working in Drupal 8 and Rules UI. People in the past used things like login destination module, that's available in Drupal 8. Login toboggan, there's no sign that it's going to Drupal 8, and that was a very popular module there. So authoring. Drupal 8 does a better job out of the box. It's still not complete when you spin it up. So you do have text formats that are predefined. They're actually in the right order. In Drupal 7, you had to reorder them so they made sense. So when you see those text formats, and I can show you just to clarify what I'm talking about. So in this order, when your node page loads, it's going to start at the top. It's going to start at the top and go, okay, does this user have access to this text format? And it's roll down. So you're going to want the most restrictive or the least restrictive up at the top, so that by the time they get down to plain text, it's an anonymous user most of the time that will have the plain text. But in Drupal 8, fortunately, this is the typical order. Drupal 7, you had to futz around with this, and it's not real plain, like what's going on here, like who gets what a text format and therefore what text editor. So a much better improvement in Drupal 8. Okay, so we have a WYSIWYG editor by default, Ckeditor in Drupal 8, which in Drupal 7 you had to load one, and different people had different preferences there. You can swap out your favorite text editor there. I would recommend sticking with Ckeditor. There's certain ways to enhance the experience there. We have a module called Ckeditor Entity Link, or Link It. It kind of improves creating the links, the link button in the editor. Let me show that. So even here, where I have to drill down into this, it's very tedious. So there is a menu in the system that you can edit and add these links to create a page. It'd be much easier. So you can imagine, like, over time, you're working on the site every day for weeks and weeks, months and months, and you keep doing the same clicks, and if you get it sorted out ahead of time, it's much better. So out of the box, there's not much there for the Ckeditor toolbar, right? So you've got, like, that's what comes out of the box. And there's not great things there. So for instance, end users love to put images in the text. As much as we try to get away from that, there's no way to browse the server here out of the box to grab an image that's already up on the server. So if you don't load something like IMCE here, they're not going to be able to grab their files off the server. Now Drupal 8 is moving towards using the media module, which is a whole different paradigm for images, and it's a big change for the end users. There are some advantages to it, but ahead of time you're going to have to determine whether you're going to do something like IMCE to manage your images or do media. So for instance, all right, so when you install a media module, these are all the modules that get installed with one Drush enable media. And there's quite a bit of complexity here. There's a lot of functionality, but a lot of complexity to go through and try to get it set up the way you want it. It's much better now than it was 6 months ago, and certainly a lot better than it was a year ago. So it is getting there. You can, through the media module, have users put images in the WYSIWYG, but they're not going to see the tags they're used to. If they're sophisticated users and they're used to seeing image tags and being able to mess with those, there's nothing that they can mess with there. But they can align things, resize the images. An added benefit is because they're entities, you're actually embedding an entity, not just the image, is that it can have fields attached to it, like a caption or other information to it. So there are advantages to using the media module, but you have to weigh those carefully, because once you go down one path, getting on the other track is pretty much impossible without doing a lot of data work. or re-entering data. Yes?
So I noticed that you're not using image, a picture module, or are you using a broken point module?
Broken point module?
I'm sorry, a breakpoint module.
Breakpoint.
That was the interpreter.
Yeah, this is just what media wants to install. So this is just me typing in drush enable media, and this is everything that got installed. So there's a lot of other things you can add to this to add the additional functionality after you do that. And by the way, there's certain things here like drop zone that needs a library. And you know, I was running through some tests for this presentation, and the library wasn't pulled down, so I had to manually pull down the library. So media module, there's a lot of complexity. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. But it needs the thought ahead of time to figure out which is going to work best for you, your client. There's other things. You have to enable the C tools or CAS tools. And like I say, the module media has been changing a lot. So I know when we had DrupalCon Baltimore, they were working on it there. It's getting there though. So while we're talking about planning ahead, Drupal site comes down quite often to content types and organizing information by content types. There are a lot of settings when you create your own custom content type, or even the two that are there, basic page and article, if you're using those. There are settings there that if you don't set them properly, as you create content, they inherit those defaults. So for instance, if you create a content type, your custom content type, and you have the submission information, the author and the date that it was created, displayed with the content, then you're gonna have to go in all those nodes and shut that off. So these are all the steps, like before you even start getting like heavily into the site, you want to take care of this stuff. Comments by default are enabled. And how many content types really do you want? I mean, how many sites use comments? How many times you're gonna? It's not going to be the majority of the time that you use comments. So you got to shut those off ahead of time. Plus, they can be a security or a spam or a way for let spam into the site. If you're going to use comments, I would highly recommend using the Discuss module. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's Discuss. It's actually a service, so it helps filter out the spam for you if you're allowed to. Maybe a lot of government sites you might not be allowed to do that, but a lot of government sites might not have comments anyhow. So in Drupal 8, we do have these displays out of the box. We have not only view displays or displays of nodes, the typical ones are default and teaser come out of the box, and then you'll add some after that, most likely. But you also have form displays, and quite often you load a module. For instance, you add a media field, say, and then you open up your node form with your brand new media field in it, and you notice it's just a type ahead field, which is not going to be what you want. So you have to go into actually in the form displays and set that up. Again, set up media module, and maybe next DrupalCon I'll do a media module talk. So URLs out of the box, you're going to get the ugly Drupal URLs, node / whatever the node number is. You're going to want to, users can, it does have you do have the ability to type something in for the URL, but it's not going to automatically do it until you install Path Auto. And then you have to go into Path Auto and define for each content type how you want those URLs to look like. There we go. So, my son just gave me this. It's great. So your default URL is content/node title, right? Yeah, I just thought, yeah, we understand it's content. It's not very useful. So it's like, it's a basic page, could be an article, could be a blog post. It's pretty useless. I hate to have the extra characters in there too, because they're not really doing anything. So you go in, you make it make sense. Typically, I would say URLs signal content organization, so sections of the site. So if it's a blog page, you would have blog / the node title. So, and all that leads into usability and SEO and making it friendly for humans, which also makes it friendly for the robots out there to understand what's in your site, because the robots are learning from the humans. So we've already been talking a bit about displays, and Drupal 8 big in form displays. So important thing here for the node form is it's going to define the body field summary behavior. And so typically in a teaser, you might have summary, display summary or trimmed. A nice module that's out there to use is the Smart Trim module. So you can trim it not by character count, but by word count. And I think sometimes that makes sense. You can also do some nice things like put in a suffix, indicate, put a read more link. There's some other things that the Smart Trim module does that you might want to take a look at that. Do you want to create image styles? Out of the box, we've got things like large, medium, and thumbnail. There's some other things in there. So, but it's getting confusing with media module. What is an image style? Where does an image style come in? And where, if you're using the media module, it actually has displays for media. So they're more like node displays or entity displays. So there's several places you have to go in Drupal 8 to get all that to work right. So a little bit of planning, a little bit of thought behind that is always recommended. And then I think, again, I recommend the Display Suite module. Thank you. Blocks. So blocks are back. And this was kind of a surprise in Drupal 8 because for a while there I thought I was the only one still using blocks in any big way. But they seem to be more important and more flexible. Of course, we've got that Drupal structure. Maybe let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. Pull the other side here. Hi. So this is a Drupal site, and this is what Drupal spits out on the front end for your theme. And so we've got regions and blocks, and this is, I use this slide in another talk about design. So this is actually the way we're organizing our content on the page by default out of Drupal. Now, people use panels, that kind of fills that role. but it lays on top of this too. So that you're actually, to compose a page, you have to stick blocks and regions, and you have to define your regions in your theme. So this is the basic organizational structure of a Drupal page. And now with the improvements in layouts, 8.3 was a big release. Layouts went into core. It was really difficult to upgrade your site for a little while there. I think it's better now. And what they're moving towards with layouts is a drag and drop interface for composing that front end in a sort of in a panels kind of way, or end user to have end user say, I want this chunk of content to go here and this chunk of content to go there. Now the underpinnings of that are going to feed all these other modules like panels, if panels gets ready for prime time in Drupal 8, so that understanding these blocks and how they work. Now we have things are blocks now that weren't before, like node titles. I'm not sure if that was a smart idea because I'm already fighting that sometimes, but that's where they are. If you're using Display Suite, you can not use that and define that in your view display. Site branding on a page is now a block, so you could create your own. You have block types, so you can create your own block types, and you can create custom blocks based on those block types. And a block type is just your block, which is like the body typically, and it has a title, and then you can stick all sorts of fields on it too. So block types are another interesting tool in the Drupal 8 toolkit. And unlike Drupal 7, you can add multiple instances of the same block. So in Drupal 7, if you create a custom block, you could only use it once in that block layout page. But now you can add it several times and say, okay, I want this one to be in this region and show on these pages, but I want the other one to show in the bottom region or the footer region, wherever it's going to be. So views is now in core, which is great, and it still has some of these hidden settings that I'm sure a lot of people never see. So and some assets that possibly people don't explore. So we have a bunch of pre-configured views, like for example the front page that shows the most recent nodes created. We have the manage content view, we have the manage users view, which is great. So now all those administrative views can be modified and made to work more to your liking. But we have all these settings when you go into, your site. Let me just show you some of these. So we have this tab over here. How many people have gone to this tab? See? All right, so how many times you're creating views? We create a lot of views. You're creating views and you have the advanced section is closed all the time. And how many times a day do you open up the advanced section? And why is it closed anyways? Why, just because it's advanced, it's got to be closed? You're going in there all the time setting, conditional filters and defining relationships, and for no results, setting that. So why not have it show all the time? So you can go in here, set that after you've installed Drupal, and you never have to click on that field collection again to get it displayed. This button here, allow embedded displays, if you're if you're programming, what that allows you to do is use a function call to grab that view, and it's a very specific thing. Down here, some people like to see the SQL query so they can debug it. You can turn that on. You can also turn off automatically update preview on changes. So if you've got a very large site and you're editing the view, and every time you change, add a field to the view or change the sorting, it wants to load the view again, and that can just be painful over time. Again, the idea is to save yourself some trouble while you're working on the site, and these are some of the headaches that can be avoided. Sorry, I'm having a little technical glitch. There we go. All right. So once you've created views, there are some settings in the Views UI that you should know about. And definitely visit the no results settings by default. If you have a block, it's just going to be hidden from the user. Sometimes you want to let them know that there's no results instead. You have the exposed form style, and you can also have it available as a block, so you can place it in the layout, so you can set those, and that's new. Style setting the exposed form as in the block is a new thing. You can set in the exposed form, that's the exposed form for filtering the view. Typically it's just going to say submit, which is not very user friendly because what you're doing is searching or filtering. And then you can add a show all or a similar button to they call it reset, but you can give it a more user-friendly name there so people know, instead of like taking the stuff out of the fields and hitting submit again, that they can actually show everything that's in the view. There's also, you can also, just like in Drupal 7, you can tell it to auto submit the filters. I find that most of the time that's more annoying and not very user-friendly, but there might be cases for that. And just remember, before you go to production, to set your caching in the views, but test it. It can have undesirable results setting the caching in the view. If you have views that can't have that setting on, or else they don't work right. We do a lot of acrobatics with our views. So again, media is something you want to get more acquainted with. Setting your file system, typically the settings right now will be in the default files directory for public, and private you have to set before you can have private put things there. Image styles we covered. And while we're at it, set your date and time formats. I find the out-of-the-box formats, there's a long date, medium date, short date. Sometimes you just want the date, not the time. And when you set those, you have to look at the PHP documentation to see what kind of syntax you need there to to set it, but setting those ahead of time would be helpful. And probably if you're designing the system, the requirements, you're not going to be thinking, I'm going to use the out-of-the-box Drupal date formats. So, like I said earlier, we use notifications quite a bit for workflows in the sites we build. We typically always use the SMTP module, especially now that we've got good free SMTP hosting with the MailChimp service. And the reroute module is indispensable once you have a bunch of notifications configured. And having these settings in your settings.php is a lifesaver too. So what we're doing, we're on Pantheon, so we're shuffling things between local to the dev environment to the testing and production. And you're going through all those. And the worst thing that can happen is suddenly emails start going out from a dev environment or a test environment. So if you put these settings, and they're well documented in your settings.php, and you check your environment, you say, okay, in Pantheon it's well documented. There'll be other ways to check in the settings.php where you are, so you can turn it on for the non-production environments and just be assured that it's always going to be on. Or if you're working locally, the mail is going to get rerouted all the time. And of course, in Drupal 8, you also have development.settings.php too, where you can set some things that are specific for your local environment. And then as you approach, or even before you approach, and enough time to really test things out, you want to play with your caching settings. There are a few less actually in Drupal 8 than were in Drupal 7. Aggregating your JavaScript and CSS, setting your views caching, setting your expired time. I think out of the box it's just set to none. So you want to set those. And Drupal 8, it'd be hard not to talk about configuration management, which is new in Drupal 8 and very handy. Typically, the location for those configurations is automatically set for you in the settings.php file, so they're going to be under your site's default directory, but you're also going to want to version those files. So you're going to want to be able to check those into Git so your configurations are versioned. And then just briefly some pre-launch tasks. Just making sure you disable all the develop modules. Just disable modules that are not being used. In Drupal 8, we've got a weird enhancement where you can no longer disable modules. You have to uninstall them, which is not necessarily all bad since you have your configurations checked into Git to get them back. But there's some cases where unfortunately you want to have disabled modules, but you're just going to have to uninstall them. And always check your log, your logging. You don't want to show the end users those errors, and make sure that you clean up your log as you develop your site. So if you're seeing a lot of warnings there, they take a toll on your performance. All right, and we'll have for questions now. Hopefully there's some new stuff there for you. I know a lot of it seems pretty basic. It is Drupal out of the box, but I think a lot of times we need a reminder about some of these settings.
You mentioned redirecting the user after they logged in to the home page.
Yeah.
Is that in the core install, or did you use a different?
No, you have to use a module. So we use rules a lot, but there's a couple modules there that are easier to set up, possibly for redirecting. so you can use those. But rules and rules UI. Actually, when you install rules now, rules UI gets installed too, so you don't have to install them separately, which is nice. Anyone else? No? Come on. Over there. Hey. Wait a minute, you can't go yet.
What about recapture or honeypot?
Yeah, that's a good. I had that in the other version of this, but yeah, if you got any form out there, it is going to get spammed. I mean, it's going to happen. So reCAPTCHA is the Google-based one where you click the little box that says "I'm not a robot," and some of them show images, and you have to say, okay, which one of these are flowers, and you click on 3 of the images. Dreese's Mullum module, I find it's not working so well these days, but and it's end of lifing. That's good. Well, yeah, there were a few other things though. There was the CAPTCHA module too, and there was numerical CAPTCHAs and CAPTCHAs. I think the reCAPTCHA is good, and the honeypot module is very good too. It's good to look into that.
What is honeypot?
Honeypot is, so you've got a machine looking at your website, and you've got a hidden field there, and the machine, you don't see it, the end users don't see it, but the machine sees it and wants to put information in it, and they've just been stuck in the honeypot. So that's the idea there. But thank you all. Glad you were able to attend.